Call this meeting to order. Our chair, Free Johnson, is going to join us, but he's running late. So we will go ahead and take a look at our agenda and see if we're okay. If I can have a motion to approve the agenda as presented, or if there's any modifications.
I move that we accept the agenda as printed.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion about the agenda? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries. Duncan, you're making the quorum, man. Don't go anywhere. And the second item of business is approval of the minutes from June 23rd, our June meeting. And they are presented in the packet. And there's lots of good detailed comments. So is there...
I move we accept.
For a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion about the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, well, we'll just go ahead and jump into the chief's update. And I saw the chief, there he is.
Yeah, I'm here. Got a little mask on.
Yep, me too.
Yes, we have to.
Mine will be, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chief.
Mine will be rather brief. I always try to give you an update of where we are as far as crime and everything within the community. In spite of what you see on the news, we're down in Gainesville. And I'll say that again, and we got stats to corroborate that particular thing.
Down on what, Chief?
Okay, when we look at, unfortunately, homicides, this year we have 4. Last year this time, we had 6. So that's a reduction. We're actually up in sexual batteries by 53.73%. Robberies, we're actually up. Aggravated assaults, we're actually up. When you start looking at property crime, burglaries, we're down by 4.37%. Larceny, we're down by 16.15%, and auto theft, we're down by 22.18%. So grand total on your property crimes is 15.73. When you combine both totals, we're down in crime by 9.90% overall within the city of Gainesville. Homicides, when I told you 4, 1 is too many.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't think that I'm overjoyed that it's 4 versus 6. 1 to me is too many. And we'll be presenting what we've been doing thus far with what we call place-based policing, where our crime analysts are looking at the areas and we're putting extra emphasis within the area. We're doing prevention also. We've got security in those areas, private security that is helping in those areas where we have identified as a hot spot. The other thing that we're doing proactively, those individuals that may have a tendency to be a victim or perpetrator in past violent crime, we're reaching out to them. But we're reaching out to them with a delegation from the community. What can we do to help you? School, psychological, what can we do to help you along this particular way? Because we don't want to see you fall in that trap. One of the things that criminologists will tell you, hurt people will hurt people. If you've been a victim in the past of a violent offense, there's a high propensity that you're going to go out and commit a violent crime yourself. You're going to be one that go out and commit a violent crime yourself. So we want to go out and proactively, I don't like to wait for something, I like to go out proactively and do it. I've had probably 9 community meetings. Yes, sir.
I just had a quick question about the intervention and things you're doing, the proactive intervention. I literally, like 2 days ago, was just reading a story out of Pasco, Florida, Pasco County, Florida.
Pasco County?
Where they were talking about this same type of pre-intervention work, but it didn't seem like it was lawful. Like it actually seemed like they were just criminalizing people before they actually were even committing crimes. So you
Yeah.
didn't explain it, you know, all the things that they would, you know what I'm saying? So I was just
That's
wondering if we could have a
A
little.
lot different from Pasco
Yeah, you
County.
know, we could have a.
Because you have-
You know how we get an email and a
Right.
breakdown of different things, so.
Well, I'll send you an
just to make
email.
sure we don't-
You actually have faith-based community, you have neighborhood people that go out with you. So it's not like Tony Jones knocking on the door, can you get out, can I help?
And that's what it was. It was literally like they were sending officers to people's houses. It was like
No,
literally.
no,
Then
it's
like,
not like, you go as a team, you go as a support team. Because here's the thing, suppose they say yes. Who's gonna follow up with that person? Who's gonna follow up with that person that say, oh, I wanna go to school. I'm scared to navigate the system. I bet some people your age. I won't say the neighborhood. They're scared of Santa Fe. They told me they're scared of it.
Scared of what?
Santa Fe College.
Really?
They said that they don't like it, it's institutional, but I sat and listened because I did 8 neighborhood, I did 8 forums since all this been going on. And I was a very enlightening conversation I had with them. One thing that I did notice that they're gonna need that support. You can't just say, here's the sheet of paper, go to Santa Fe and here's the mission desk and they'll have someone to come and talk with you. Somebody got to walk with you. Somebody got to be that support, like you did in Pine Ridge, you know. Someone has to carry on that particular role or it won't happen. They told me, no, they wouldn't do it. So those are some of the things that we have planned that we're doing. There'll be more that we're doing. I like to be proactive instead of reactive. I don't want to go to another funeral. Ms. Fox is there with me at the funeral that I went to. Unfortunately, it's another one Saturday that I'll probably be involved in. I'm tired of going to funerals of individuals that have been murdered within this community. So I take it personally. I respond to the scene and I'll do the funeral as well. So that's a kind of a little idea of what we've been doing here in Gainesville as far as addressing some of those issues. But we're down overall in crime. But I'm not rejoicing because the bodies, you know, someone killed is someone killed. That's nothing to rejoice over. Questions that you all may have of me?
Are there any questions for Chief Jones?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, go ahead.
So you talked before about I mean, it is concerning, you know, at Pine Ridge last Saturday, a grandma met with us before she had to go see her grandson at the hospital. He was one that was shot 4 times, a teenager
Yeah, I know the
on
teenager.
Northeast 8th. So.
No, I didn't know that one. I didn't know that one. There was another one in the county.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't think the police can control all the guns in the neighborhood and people shooting each other, but there is,
The neighborhood
it's
would
terrible what's
The
happening.
neighborhood would have to control the norms in the community. It takes the community to come together and say that this will not be, not the police, but the residents within the community.
So there's actually women build habitat. We've actually had moms waiting a long time, have gone through the whole system. They're ready. They're not accepting any lots in Duval now.
See,
They don't want their house to be built there.
Oh, because of that, yeah.
Yeah.
There's going to be some plans for Duval that will involve some other programs that I will announce next month. I won't announce them until I get the contract in hand. When I get the contract in hand, because otherwise I'm giving you a false hope. Once I get the contract in hand, I will be happy next month to tell you about it.
I always thought it was a pretty tight neighborhood, that there's a lot of, like Mr. Miles
Mm-hmm.
and Carla Miles, that they had like a good thing going, but.
And they do. Don't discount the hard work, the strategic planning, and everything else that the Greater Duval Association, Ms. Butler, Mr. Miles, Miss Miles, and Mr. They have a great thing going. sometimes things happen. When you can have some of the most organized things going on, some things just happen. So I'm not gonna take anything away from them, because I've seen the work and I've seen the product that they have produced, and it's good. Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead, Fred.
Chief, I received a text this afternoon about a Stop the Violence walk through the Duval area tomorrow at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, we got somebody
People
here.
assembling at Mount Carmel, and then walking through the Duval neighborhoods and Gardenia Garden Apartments.
Ms. Brittany Coleman here, our individual that respond to a lot of these things and stuff like that, provide counseling and stuff. They're a part of it.
Great.
Yes. Because that's the other thing, when I told you hurt people, a lot of times you think that it's the perpetrator and the victim, but those who have witnessed this over and over again, there's some traumatic impact on that. So they may not have a flesh wound or something like that, but psychologically, it could impact them.
Are there any other questions from members of the board for the chief? Okay, well, we will jump into some of the meat of our meeting tonight. We've got, up next is a SWAT presentation from Lieutenant West and Sergeant Farrow. Looking forward to hearing all about it.
Good evening. My name is Lieutenant Mike West. This is Sergeant Farrow. So I'm here to give a presentation. The presentation will discuss some of the many deployments that we've done over the past few years. I'll discuss some of the criteria used in serving our search warrants. I'll discover what it takes to become a SWAT member and the like. So I guess most of it is in your presentation. So just a little about me. So I've been at the police department for about 26 years now. I hold several certifications related to tactics and SWAT and the like. I've been to several command schools. My highest certification is I'm a federal law enforcement instructor in active shooter and firearms. So I have a pretty good history. I've been on a total of about 13 years SWAT, 10 as an operator, and about 2.5, 3 as the actual commander of the team. So I get right into it. So SWAT, an acronym, is Special Weapons and Tactics. Basically, it's an elite group of Gainesville police officers that are specially trained to handle situations that go beyond the capabilities of the regular patrol officers. So, we work as a coordinated team to resolve critical incidents that are so hazardous, complex, unusual, they may exceed the capabilities of the patrol officer. Unfortunately, today, every encounter, whether low or high, there's potential for injuries and or death. Our operating standard is to minimize injuries and deaths to victims, officers, and suspects. So this is some of the few, so we put our search warrants into two categories, low to medium or medium to high, as far as the risk. Some of the things we use to determine how we serve a search warrant, basically firearms, whether firearms are present at the location, criminal history of the subjects at the location, the environment, whether we can contain the location, whether it's big or small, and the amount of suspects all plays a part of it. The presence of children, elderly, whether they're a documented gang member, and the level of the offense, the potential for loss, and that includes property and finances. We have, and we will continue to We've scaled down our deployments based on the risk. So we determine the risk and that determines the tactics that we use for it. So not all search warrants are alike. It just depends on the level as far as the search. So the primary factors that are consistent, and they're very consistent in all high-profile events. This is nationwide. This is not just the Gainesville SWAT. The basic is training. When it comes to improper use of force, lack of training is a big part of it. We at the Gainesville Police Department, we train 10 hours every month. Every other month, we do 2 training days, and we get a total of 220 hours of training per year. We believe that tactical training and experience leads to a competent operator. And I get into as far as getting on when it comes to when I mention a competent operator. When you make SWAT, usually it takes 6, 8, 9 months before you are what we consider operational. So even though you do everything you need to do to make the SWAT team, there's still several avenues that it takes to get deployed as an operator. So I list a few things that we train on. Reason why active shooter is highlighted is for obvious reasons. Myself and Sergeant Farrell, we believe in kind of hammering home with the operators is it's not if, it's when. We prepare for the worst. We just do. It is what it is. When you think about it, we haven't had our, the Aurora, the Colorado theater shootings. We haven't had our post-9/11 shootings. We've been fortunate, knock on wood. We haven't had our Sandy Hook. We have schools. We've been fortunate. But our responsibility is to make sure we have operators that are ready in case we do. And that's where part of the training comes in. And as you see on there, without me mentioning all of it, we train several different things related to our actual job and position. So, to become selected, basically as a candidate, you're required to do firearms proficiency tests, your fitness. We put you through scenarios, and this process takes like an entire day. It's a long day. We put you through a stress course, exposure to OC. You do some rappelling, obstacle course. The biggest, if you look at that, you look at number 8 where it says interview with team leadership. That's interview with myself and Sergeant Farrell. We review IA histories, job performance, and community service. I'm going to repeat that. And community service. We're looking for folks that have the mentality of saving lives. That's the bottom line. SWAT's glorified. You see on television, I want to be a SWAT officer, this and that. It's not about that. It's not about that. If you're not there to save lives, I don't want you around. Now, that's just a personal thing. That's just kind of, I want folks with the save lives mentality on my team. And that's what we look for in this process. So operators, so now we're at about 26 operators. As you see, I guess we're a part-time unit, so all of us have full-time jobs, so to speak. We're patrol operations, patrol support, CID, SOU. So we come from different positions in the department, but we all come together for the training days that you see there. So, and this will take, and I meant to put 2019, 20, and 21, March, that'll be March 2019. So we've had now 78 deployments, so we've had a few since I did this presentation. But if you look at the types of deployments that we've had, barricade incidents, wood searches, and usually those are for violent felons, folks that barricade themselves in a house, don't come out. We have charges, whether it's for murder or whatever. Those are your barricades. You see ICAC on there, that's crimes against children. And you see we've served 14 warrants for that, for our criminal investigation division, and that includes property, financial crimes, and person crimes. We served 10 for our narcotics units. We're at 15. Where you see QRF, that's basically a quick reactionary force. And you know, with all the high-risk concerts that we've had, and the inauguration and the protests, you know, we'll spin up a little team, a little emergency team. Patrol, search warrants, we've assisted. We have a great relationship with our counterparts, ASO SWAT. So whenever they need extra bodies for whatever reason, you know, we've assisted them in their search warrants. They've assisted us in our search warrants. We've assisted them in several, whether wood searches or search warrants, whatever, for homicide suspects. We kind of help each other out. It's a great partnership that we have with them. The other thing, as far as the demos, that's basically our community service. COVID kind of put a dent in that for 2020, 21. Usually we would average 4 or 5, even 6, even more, some that we don't document. But it's important for us to be out in the community. I'm out in the community. My fellow teammates are out in the community. We push that. It's important. On a side note to that, I'm actually a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Sorry, Chief. He's the other guys. But we believe in community. But we believe in community service, and that's what I'm all about. So it's not all about, you know, we're here to save lives. We're here to do a job. But if my operators are not out serving the community, then, you know, quite frankly, I probably wouldn't want you on my team. That's just part of it. So you look at the next slide, and I put that up there. That's our motto. We say that a lot. We push that a lot. If you are not thinking that way, I don't want you, and I'm not trying to be mean about it, but you have to set the bar high. You have to have that standard of saving lives. And that's kind of what everything that we do, even if it seems that we go above and beyond as far as whether it's a search warrant, it's a barricade, it's a wood search, we may go above and beyond. That may, for other folks, may seem like it's doing too much. We feel that it's best to do too much than do too little. Because what happens is when you do too little, people get killed, people get hurt. It's easy to do too much and have to, you know, on the fly or in the midst of it, scale it down, as opposed to do too little and then something bad happens and now you're trying to scramble around and that's when people get hurt. So this slide, basically it's some of and you'll recognize some of these things, the community national night out and the expos and stuff like that. That's the stuff that we're always involved in. We'll get phone. Some are not even listed. We'll get phone calls and can we get some SWAT officers to come out and do a demo and you know, show you little toys, and we do that. We feel that's important, but like I said, COVID kind of put the kibosh on a lot of the rules on. Okay, so I'm gonna just talk this based on some of our deployments. There's many. I just picked a few. I won't get into too many details about it. The reason why is because some of the cases are probably still open. But just to kind of give you an idea of some of the things we respond to. So first of all, our members this is where the dedication comes to the craft of saving lives. We're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We don't get paid a lot for that. As a matter of fact, I'm not ashamed to say, we get paid $60 a month.
What?
That hasn't changed, for being on SWAT. Not our paycheck, but for being on SWAT, a specialty pay of $60 a month. That's to be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. if I had a nickel for every time I was sitting in the movie theater with my wife, and that my pager goes off, and I've had to say, honey, I have to go. Really, the family has to be invested in that. But if that don't show you the sacrifice, we all go out and, entertain, whether it's movies, dinner, and all that. We're 24/7. I'm speaking to you now, and someone can go terrorizing Walmart and shooting the place up. We have to go. That's just part of it. And we're off. And that's just part of the sacrifice. I just kind of want to just put that out there. It's a sacrifice of being part of SWAT. And I will be shorting any operator on our team without mentioning the importance of that sacrifice. I'll just go through these real quick. So this barricade right here, so officers responded, basically, I'm going to use verbiage, I'm just going to say victim and subject, so not mentioning any names. Like I said, some of these cases may still be ongoing. So patrol officers responded to this location in reference to witnesses looking out of a window observed the suspect point a gun at the victim, and basically it was a domestic violence situation. And the victim could be heard screaming, don't do it, while she was fleeing from it. She was able to get away by hiding behind a pool. The subject entered the apartment and refused to come out. And it wasn't his apartment. And refused to come out. So we were called out. That's one of the things we get called out on, obviously. Charges were confirmed, pointing a gun at someone, obviously, threatening to kill them, ag assault. We responded along with our negotiation response team. This barricade probably lasted about 3 hours. And I'm going to keep referring back to the saving lives part of it. We'll wait all day long. We're not in a rush. The mindset and trying to get folks out of the mindset that SWAT is there and they're ready to keep the doors in we don't do that. We'll, sometimes, whether you're a suspect or not, it's a life. Sometimes they need a mental break. Most of our SWAT operators and definitely our negotiation response team, they're mental health counselors, or CIT. They're part of that. And they will talk to that person as long as it takes, and we will wait as long as it takes. And this is a great example where after 3 hours, and I'm skipping the negotiation part of it because I'm going to leave that out. Please understand. But long and short, the person came out, surrendered to the SWAT officers, and that's the picture you see there. So that was a success. So the next one you see, there was a murder. The Columbia County attempted a traffic stop. Once they realized it was actually two suspects, and they fled. They actually fled to High Springs. They fled into a wooded area. Their SWAT team, a lateral SWAT team, and our SWAT team responded. And this is just a picture of just an example of one of the searches. We've done many. The picture on the right, I always say we always pray. Every deployment, we always pray. We're praying that we don't have to take a life, regardless of the situation. We're praying that we get resolution, peaceful resolution. Fortunately, in this case, the suspect was apprehended by one of our SWAT operators hiding behind a tree on a log. So another peaceful end. So this incident happened in the Northwest. Patrol officers responded to the victim who called in advising that the suspect had a butcher knife to her throat, would not let her exit the residence. The call takers advised that they can hear the suspect tell the victim that if she got away or if she fled the house, that he would charge the police and make us kill him. And what do I keep saying about the whole save lives mentality? That's what we don't want. The suspect would come outside of the door, but not far enough for apprehension. he kind of played that game, would go back inside, go back out. One of our operators, SWAT operators, who was on the other side of this house, gained a rapport with him. And after about 2 hours of talking and us taking our time, we still always plan for the worst. Keep that in mind when we respond here, because you have to remember we still have a life to save that's inside the residence. But as long as we get that communication with that person, we feel that if we get you talking, we can help. And that's just kind of what we believe in. We want to help. This particular case right here, the person walked out after one of our, the good report that he had, he came out, he surrendered to SWAT officers. Am I doing bad on time?
Yep, you're okay. We've
Okay.
got another couple minutes.
Please let me know. I'm about done.
Okay.
All right. So this is a barricade situation. Called in, and this one involved mother, father, 3 kids. So a child called in, advised that the father had just shot his mother. Patrol officer responded and were able to make contact with the wife, and who advised that yeah, he shot, but he shot into a tower. He didn't shoot me. Negotiations were started by the patrol officers. They were able to get her out and the kids out. He wasn't coming out. Of course, he had charges for domestic strangulation, discharge of firearm and the like. So obviously he wasn't leaving. So so he went to the second floor and pushed up a couch and kind of barricaded himself inside of the house. He, I try to just explain this term. So he made like a little sniper's perch, which basically what he did was he barricaded himself around somewhere where he could put his rifle up, and called into our dispatchers and advised, I can kill all GPD officers because I'm watching them through my scope rifle. So that happened. So again, negotiation response team was right on, made contact with him, and he would. This probably went on for 3-4 hours. He would, I'm gonna give up. I'm not gonna give up. I'm gonna give up. And this just kind of went on. Negotiation continued. We still planned for the worst, but the best happened. He eventually gave up, and I won't get into the meat and potatoes of what was used to get him out. But well, I'll just say this: we allowed him to talk to his mother. We do everything. If you can help, because we don't want to, we don't want to take a life. If you can help, yeah. And his mother was able to help, and even then, it was kind of hard trying to get him to understand that we was there to help him. And but eventually he came out. So great resolution. And the last slide I have here, actually I got 2 more. So this is an example of a hybrid search warrant. So this house here it's on the northeast side, and I can't tell you how many complaints went probably, I know, to the chief and maybe to the commissioners about this house, about the gangs, narcotic use, you name it. So our narcotics units was put on basically this house and working it to see if everything was valid as far as the complaints. So they confirmed that this house was indeed being used to manufacture cocaine. They were selling guns. There was active gang members in and around and living in this house, and other things. So we asked the help of Alachua County SWAT, and together we served the warrant on this house. So long story short, after serving the warrant, property was obtained that basically confirmed all the allegations. This house, as it stands now, or doesn't, is no longer a problem in the community. I don't think we've had any complaints. Oh yeah. So the AFAB food store. So prior to hitting this house, and this was kind of what really set us spiral into, okay, this is definitely high risk. So the gang members shot a video, and they shot it in front of the AFAB food store, where they reenacted kidnapping somebody put him in the back of a trunk, took him to the living room of this house, tied him up, and had rifles pointed at him, all types of pistols pointed in the video. You know, we already, and we identified gang members out of that group and the weapons that was used. And that elevates things when that happens. You know, and speaking, I know the chief was talking about the gun violence in this community. It was 4, 5, 6. The sniper rifle, and I won't get into it, but it's part of kind of what we're dealing with in the city of Gainesville. So this had to be done. There's no doubt about it. But as of now, there's no longer a problem, the house. And my last slide is here. So and I say this house was in Porter's. Same thing, complaints. Complaints that, sent up to the chief, and it may have gone beyond that, I'm not sure. But I know SWAT, even before I came back as a commander, had served a search warrant in this house. Was it 2 times before? 3 times on this house. Every time we serve a warrant on this house, once the occupants are gone, the new occupants get in there, and they fortify it even more. By the time we hit the last time, there was burglar bars on the windows and doors. There was video surveillance, all to kind of keep us out in a way, and all things that you can imagine. This particular photo I took standing over and forgive me if I can say it, standing over a dead body. He was shot and killed in that room. And when I'm actually the shift commander on the evening shift, and we responded to this house of someone shot. And when I walked into the room, I'm like, yeah, we've hit this house about 3 or 4 times. And they fortified it even more. And I'm standing there, and the deceased person is in front of me. And I happened to look up, and I didn't realize when I walked in, I looked up and I saw, if you look on the right, all the weapons up there. Some of them, there were several missing, so from us getting there, some were stolen. But I'm looking around, like, every time we hit, they do more and more. Last time we hit this house, there was no weapons, there was nothing, and in that little bit of time, that's what we had. So if you look on the left, there's surveillance that had the whole house, and all this is just to kind of keep an eye on us and what we're doing. And I won't get into the details of the person that was shot, but I mean that's a great example of some of the weaponry that's right here in the city of Gainesville, and what we deal with when we do search warrants. So think about it, we're doing search warrants here, and they have those types of weapons, then that puts us that will be classified as a high-risk search warrant.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know you can't give exact dates. This has happened many years ago. How recent was the Porter incident?
How recent was the shooting?
Mm-hmm.
This happened 2020, I believe. I don't even know, maybe the summer. It was 2020. 2020, yeah, 2020 for the summer. Okay, yeah, I apologize for not having the exact date, but it was 2020 for sure. Because the last time we started a search warrant was the beginning of 2020. And I think this, because I remember when you responded there, you were on the road, and I was like, we just served a warrant in this house like a couple months ago or something like that. So it was 2020. I haven't heard any other complaints from that house. Chief. All right, and the last slide here. So this is my measuring stick as a commander. This SWAT is difficult enough. I admit I lose sleep. The reason why is because of my responsibility, which is unlike any other responsibility, because 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I'm thinking. When we respond and we are deployed to barricades, shootings, hostage situations, search warrants, low or high, I'm always thinking about, I don't want nobody to get hurt. And I lose sleep just thinking about that. What saves or what keeps my sanity is, and I showed this slide before, one, the Save a Life slide, the other one is training. Training. We train and we train hard. We're purposeful with what we do. Training is the reason why you see 0 on injuries and on deaths. And I can say it. I say it again. Training is the reason why you see that. 0. And I pray to God it stays that way. Because it is a big responsibility. The National Guard, the Army, they're not coming in here to help us. If we get an active shooter, you know, there's stuff going on downtown, and I can tell you because I work evening shift, parties and all types of, you know, whether it's, you know, because everybody's coming to Gainesville. So the downtown community with clubs and all that, that's a big thing. We get shots fired all of the time. All of that. And that's not even talking about the situation we had last Sunday and Monday with the, you know, people getting shot. But shots fired is not uncommon here in Gainesville. And what, you know, I'm invested in this community. I've been here 28 years now, and some of you may have been here longer than me, but I'm invested. I raised a family here, and this is my home. And when I come and go, or when I retire, the fact that we have a SWAT team at the ready, dedicated operators who are willing to, you know, be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to respond to the worst, that makes me feel good as a, you know, as someone who lives in the community. Because when I retire, I'm not moving, I'm staying in the community, and I would hate to, you know, to be honest with you, to live somewhere or live in a community that does not have a SWAT team at the ready to handle those responsibilities. That, quite frankly, people don't want to do it. It's you know, it's a big responsibility, and that's just, you know, that's just the truth of it. So I'm done. So I answer any questions.
Okay, Ms. Fox has a question.
I don't know if this question is directed to you or the chief, our city manager. You were telling me that you all only get paid $60 a month for putting your lives on the line to protect us. That is appalling. Mr. Manager, and compared to other cities our size who have SWAT teams, are their officers being paid only $60? We could find money for everything else. These people are protecting our lives, and they put their lives on the line every single day. And we giving them $60 a month?
So,
Mr. Manager, I'm listening.
okay, so we have a lot of officers that go out there every day who put their lives on the line. Okay, and wonder if they're coming back home at the end of the day. I appreciate that. And there's not it's not a job that is for everybody, and it takes a certain type of individual to be that guardian of our community.
I know that. We know that.
Right, and we strive to pay fair and equitable wages to our police officers and our firefighters and everybody within the city.
Mr. Manager.
Wait, let me finish.
Okay.
So the $60 is on top of, okay, it's what we call an incentive pay to join that, you know, we have other incentive pays too. But all of these are collectively bargained because they are represented by a bargaining unit. And when we deal with compensation levels, that's a matter that's mandatory subject to bargaining. And certainly if there's a need to address that, I'm confident that the FOP in their contract and the TVA and their contract for lieutenants would be addressing that on there. But I'm certainly not going to bargain a contract in public. So.
Oh, no, but I would like for you to know that several officers from GPD, I've had meetings with them about their low pay grades. most of them have to work, well, a lot of them work 2 jobs in order to take care of their families. And I was hoping that was resolved, but apparently not. But I do get calls from officers talking about how they have to work, they work with the EMTs and different things just to supplement their pay. And we have people in administration that makes $180,000, $150,000, and they sit at a desk all day long and Google and order stuff offline and go to the mall and shop. And we have these officers who have to work 2 jobs to take care of family. And I know it's all with the union and all that, but I think we need to step up to the plate and not wait for the bargaining, so we could give our officers what they rightly deserve, so they don't have to work 2 jobs, Mr. Feldman.
So again, under Florida law, we cannot do things unilaterally.
Okay.
Okay, we are required to bargain.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and our contract with the FOP is up in '22. And you may recall that there was a lot of issues with the union agreement before. We were years without a contract.
Uh-huh.
And right before I got to the city, they had resolved the issues for a 3-year period. And so we're in that 3-year contract period right now.
So there's no way these officers can get a pay raise without going through the union and the bargaining.
Well,
I think the proper thing to do is we don't have to wait till the union. We know what they deserve.
So that's called an unfair labor practice.
It is?
Yeah,
Oh.
it is, and I can't do it.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Okay.
look, Ms. Fox, I'd love to pay everybody more than what they're getting now, because, and not only GPD officers, but a whole cadre of individuals. The RTS drivers that were on the front line of COVID.
I get calls from them as well.
Right, okay, I mean, I get calls from everybody.
I do
there,
too.
you know,
I do too.
The stormwater community builders that are working in the ditches during the hot summer, making sure that our drainage system is working. And as you know, we didn't have flooding like the county did during this recent storm because of all the hard work that they're doing. So we are committed to a fair and equitable wage for everybody based upon the job that they are doing.
So you think they're getting paid a fair and equitable wage currently?
Ms. Fox, I think he's answered your question.
Oh,
The reality
okay. It's illegal. It's illegal.
I mean, the reality is that I suspect that compensation will be discussed at the next bargaining.
And that's in 22. They got a long time to wait.
2020.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
So
Feldman. I didn't want to.
we're in 21 now, 22 is right around the corner.
Yeah, but I just want you all to be generous to our officers at the next.
Okay, so Ms. Payne had a question, and then Mr. Young had a question.
How about an incentive bonus for 0 injuries and 0 tackle? Incentive.
Madam
Yeah,
Chair,
yeah.
I get 0 numbers
wasn't
like
going to
that,
come
there's
tonight,
$100,000.
but I'm out of town next month on a plane during the meeting.
Okay.
So I moved everything around to come, but I have to leave because I have another meeting.
Okay, well,
I must be
we're gonna move quickly. We have 2 internal affairs cases to discuss, so I guess I'll ask Ms. Payne and Mr. Young, you have quick questions for him? So
No, I have questions.
Okay.
So who initiates, I have quite a few questions.
Yes, yes.
Who initiates getting the warrants, like the last case that you talked about? And because obviously y'all have to go out quickly for others. So when shots are fired, y'all round up SWAT, not every time. You talked about shots fired.
Okay, so your first question, you want me to just?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we get requested to do search warrants. It can come from patrol officers who are working a particular house, for example, and they want SWAT to serve a warrant. The request will come from there. We get most of the requests from our criminal investigation divisions, our narcotics divisions. So, we get requests, and then once we get the request, then we serve the warrant once it gets approved.
So how are members chosen for each assignment? I mean, I want to circle back. I know you can't talk about what happened at Collier International with Mr. Hurst,
Right.
but he said 8 officers came. I'm just wondering how you choose out of each of these divisions, who's going to go? Because you have 26.
Now, yes, who's gonna go serve a warrant?
Yeah,
So, we're all operators. And usually it just depends on who's available. If you're in town, and you're available to serve a warrant, because it happens, people take vacation, whatever. So there's like no particular, like we just don't pick a particular group. We're all SWAT, we're all operators.
right. Well, how
No, I
do you
think I don't know, I think her question is when you choosing like, all right, when say something happens, say you say it's a shooter and it's like, oh, one person, one gun, how do y'all choose how many people are gonna go? Or if it's like, say y'all say it's a shooting downtown, there's a whole bunch of people.
Right.
You're gonna, so how y'all choose how many people go?
Well, what usually happens, and it works out. So, and you're right, it's hard, like, unless it's like a barricade, or a hostage situation, whatever, where we'll call the team out and everybody ramps up and shows up. What happens is, how you get SWAT response, SWAT personnel response is, for example, I'm the shift commander of evening shift. I have 5 operators on my shift. Usually if we get situations where shots are fired or something like that, my SWAT operators who have the equipment are usually the ones, and they're supposed to be, the ones that lead the charge in that. So, every shift has SWAT operators. And, we like to think that we lead the charge. And if something happens, our SWAT operators are expected to respond. We're leaders, and that's kind of what's expected. So it just depends. I can't, some you'll get more SWAT operators than other. It just depends on like who's working, the circumstances, what shift it is, or who's available.
So they're pulled off of other duties, like if they're patrol?
Yeah, if it's patrol and it happens, that's your responsibility. If it's a search warrant, if it's a hostage, whatever, we all work in different parts, and I kind of mentioned that. You will just respond. Your SWAT, and it kind of takes precedence over anything else. So, like, I'm giving an example. We get a hostage situation. We have SWAT officers patrol, we have SWAT officers working CID, they drop what they're doing and they respond to SWAT. It's even in our policy that SWAT deployment takes precedence over anything else. So if an operator is our SRO, works at the school, he's expected to respond to that.
So the property financial persons crimes, the CID,
Yes, ma'am.
so there was kind of,
Yes, ma'am.
so earlier, you talked about trying to use the least amount of, like, force. I don't understand why you would need SWAT team to serve a warrant to get a computer.
Okay, so
Because
I
did
can't.
y'all know they had guns, or, I mean, I don't get that.
Well, I can't talk about that because I think I know what you're talking about.
But it says right here, I wouldn't say protests are SWAT is needed either, but like financial crimes, white collar crime, I don't understand why SWAT would be needed for that.
Okay, again, I can't talk about that.
No, that's a general, you have
Yeah.
it right here.
But I will tell you this, financial crime, when it comes to loss of finances, it's, people act differently when they know they're probably looking at doing a lot of time. That would be, so we're getting into low risk search warrants. So we're in low risk, so whether it's, there's no such, even though, we put them in categories of low and high, the 2 FBI agents that got shot and killed, okay, on our matrix, that's a low-risk search warrant.
Yeah.
Yeah, we serve a lot of low-risk search warrants now just because of incidents like that. People act differently when they're looking at getting a lot of time, and I kind of mentioned before our presentation, we can't afford to to go into any situation not thinking the worst. Because what happens is, you knock on that door and you're thinking, oh, this is low risk, whatever, and we get shot, then who are you going to be accountable to? I would much rather explain why I did something at a higher level than have to explain to your loved one, my loved one, why we just went into something not using, you know, what we were provided, and I mean the training and all that, and something bad happens. I can't live with that.
Ms. Payne, can you wrap it up and ask one more question? We have other questions here, and we have some other business we have to
Okay, the
go
thing
to.
is, this was an area that we said would be brought back, and it
Uh-huh.
was a long presentation, so it is an area I'm particularly
Okay,
interested in.
well, go ahead and ask your questions. We've got a citizen here to talk about a closed internal affairs case. I want to make sure we get to that.
I read all the material presented to me, and I know that that's happening.
Okay.
So, I mean, one of the things is, you said you don't want to do too little, you'd rather do too much, but I believe that can cause like an overreaction. People see a SWAT team there. I see that y'all still have the armored vehicle. Can be like super stressful and actually cause overreaction on the parts of.
Well, in my experience of 26 years in law enforcement and 13 years on SWAT, people get hurt when there isn't an overreaction. If we show up and we don't take all precautions, that's when bad things happen. And that's my experience.
I won't go into it because I'm being,
I'm
pulled
sorry,
back in, but there have been
Okay.
instances in this community, like on campus,
Right.
and when a little boy was shot, where there was just too many officers there, and it was totally overreaction. And a SWAT team on campus, a man got shot in the face. So that's just my belief. It's not, I'm not asking you about data, so,
Yeah.
no, it wasn't you all.
Okay, yeah, it wasn't SWAT.
It wasn't you all, but it
Well,
was
yes.
the UF.
Yeah, it's,
So, okay, thanks.
I'm sorry.
And I hope when Mr. Hurst comes back that it'll be time for us that we could talk about that. That definitely seemed like an overreaction. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Mr. Young, I know you had some questions or comments.
Yes, I kind of had like one statement. It was kind of touching on what she just said. I had a question afterwards, but my statement was kind of alluding to what she just said. I know in your experience, you might have seen it to where, oh, an overreaction help. I've seen it the opposite. And that's what I see most of the time, where an overreaction is what costs somebody their life, or what gets somebody hurt, or what gets somebody done something to them that they didn't deserve. So I understand that might be your assessment, but I feel like you should take that back and assess the situation I agree that you shouldn't underreact, but you also shouldn't overreact. It shouldn't be okay to say, hey, we're gonna overreact, and I just feel like you should find the best way possible.
Okay.
That's it. We're not gonna agree.
No, I'm not. It's a delicate balance. My main thing is I just don't want no one getting hurt. So we're doing the best we can. We do the best we can. We're not perfect. I'm not standing in front of you saying everything we've done is perfect. All my decisions are perfect. This is not that type of presentation. We're doing the best that we can to serve this community. A measuring stick is saving lives and no one getting hurt, but we're always learning.
I understand. That's why I don't want to get into it too much. My question kind of relates back to though. I understand that there's been no injuries, there's been no anything, but from my relationship with how I've seen SWAT carried out in Gainesville, I've seen a lot of instances where SWAT wasn't needed. Like, it just wasn't needed, and we could chop it up to, low risk, high risk, or whatever, but I've seen where kids are traumatically affected because there's a whole bunch of people with guns in their face, pointing guns at them, where it wasn't needed. So it's a slippery slope. And I feel like my question to you is, so how do you mitigate, how do you guys actually go about and say, hey, this is a situation where we have to be here because when you show up and you don't have to be there, there is a cause and effect to that too. I have little cousins right now who are traumatically affected right now to this day because SWAT showed up and put guns in their face for no reason. So and that's in Gainesville. So that happens. So I just need, my thing is, how do you guys actually go about and say, okay, because I know there are times where y'all need it. So I'm not saying that y'all don't need, like, there are times where y'all need it. So how do we go about finding the line where we say, okay, yes, we are actually needed, and not because there are consequences when you come and you're not needed?
That's my whole question too.
I mean, I won't argue. Well, I'm not disputing it. All I'm just saying is, it's a process. We try not to be that guy, at least I know since I've come back as a commander. I don't want to put fear out there in the community. That's not my goal. My goal is when I come, regardless of the risk, whether it's low, medium, or high, is to walk out of there with no one getting hurt. And usually when we're there, we're serving a lawful warrant, obviously signed by a judge, and once that's done, we're out of there. Literally, we get there, we secure what we need to secure, and we get out of there. We try to lessen the impact of being out in the community when it comes to that type of work. We try to get out of there as quick as possible, because when people see our armored vehicle and they get afraid of what that armored vehicle is, our protection. I mentioned before when if I ever had to walk in someone's living room and explain to them why I didn't protect them or why I didn't think higher than lower and something bad happens, I just couldn't live with myself. But I get what you're saying, so I'm not sitting here saying it's a fine balance. All I'm just saying is, I'm part of the community too. I have kids in this community too. Just work with us. We'll work with you, just work with us. We're trying to get better. We're not perfect. We want to, I say we want to be the best, but we want to be, we're part of the community. And I don't want to do all those things that you said you've seen. So.
Yeah, I just feel like you gotta, to me, I just feel like you guys have to take into, I appreciate what you guys do. I understand y'all do a special job. I get it. At the end of the day, when you look at certain things and how things are done, it matters. So when we talk about dealing with the community and a lot of things that we see happen on both sides, so I feel like what happens is y'all will be quick to take accountability about, okay, how there's murderers and there's crazy people and there's rampage and stuff going on, but not quick to take accountability about the other side when, okay, if we come in and we do all this amped up stuff, what we do to the people. And that is a real deal.
And you're talking about beyond like what you've seen. You're not just talking about So
I'm talking about just period.
And I get that. I definitely. I'm not disputing that. I get it. I'm sorry.
I think we have one more question too. Duncan, you got a question or comment?
Yeah, I think this will be very quick because I know we have to move along, but I just wanted to say that the approach that has just been described to using the SWAT team, I have a lot of sympathy for that. I mean, the police have to serve these warrants in a world where anyone whose house they show up to might have a gun, and they have to be very careful. That is just the reality of the world we live in, and so the police department has a lot of sympathy for me about this sort of overreaction approach, as you describe it. I think maybe some of the confusion that the members of the council are having comes from a little bit of lack of clarity in how these warrant service criteria are implemented. So there's a list of factors. They seem to determine whether and how the SWAT is deployed, but we don't know exactly how the factors go into determining the decision. And I think if there was more clarity about, what the level of offense had to be or what type of offense warranted the use of the SWAT, maybe we would make some progress on some of our questions. So that's just a comment I have about the presentation. Thank you.
Well, I'll go ahead and say thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
And, I think this will be an ongoing conversation. A lot of the things brought up by all the members, because it's not a clear cut and dried thing. Every situation is very different and there's judgment calls, but I suspect we'll be continuing conversations as more scenarios present themselves. So I appreciate you, and I think if any of our members have
One more
questions.
question?
Yep, last question, go for it.
So I don't know if it's changed, but when I was at Crossing Guard with the Sheriff's Department, they had the service technicians serving warrants to people. It was like,
Civil.
okay,
Yeah.
so civil, you think is less dangerous? I mean, people are saying anytime you go up to the door, there could be a gun. I mean, civil meaning like eviction. I mean, you're still walking up to someone's door and they don't even have a gun with them. That's, I'm just wondering if that.
So that's dangerous.
I don't know, I can't answer that, because
FST does it with the sheriff. Matter of fact, we got a couple of our officers who have retired, and they went over to the sheriff department, and they work in the civil area, and they do those particular things. Yes.
It's still going up to someone's door. with a
Right, and I'm
warrant.
pretty sure, I can't speak for the sheriff, so maybe
Yeah.
that's something you can ask them how, but I'm pretty sure they got a criteria of how they deliver them, but again, I can't speak for the sheriff.
So we have, next on our agenda, we've got some closed internal affairs cases, and I think I'll leave it up to Inspector Koenig on how she wants to present them, but I suspect you have a strategy.
I do, but I didn't know if we wanted to talk about Mr. Garner's case first, so he
Yeah,
doesn't
I
have
think
to
we
wait
should do
any
his
longer.
first. I think we should do
Okay.
his first.
Okay, and would you like me to, and I know that the committee wanted to, or the council wanted to look at the body worn camera video and then come back to us with discussion or
Sure.
questions that you might
I
have.
was able to view the video, so let me check in with the members and see, did anybody else have an opportunity to review the body camera videos?
Yeah, it
You
wasn't
did?
that, I thought the officer was super polite, but it wasn't clarifying. I mean,
Yeah, it
they
wasn't.
went on and on and on. I got kind of confused about the sequence. This
Yeah.
actually helped me better.
Yeah, actually, I would say for me, when I looked at the videos, it was my first experience looking at the videos, so I wasn't sure what the right order was, and so it was like one of those puzzles where you're like, which video went before this?
Yeah.
But the conversations between the officers and Mr. Gardner, I thought, were pretty clear cut. So
I agree.
So I'll leave it at that. I didn't know what you want to do with.
I can present that case really
Okay, let's
quickly
do it.
again, and then we can allow Mr. Garner,
Please do.
if it's,
Yes,
Vice
please
Chair,
do.
if that's okay with you, we can move forward with that. So this is a case that happened July 9th of 2020, and it involves two individuals, and Mr. Garner is here, so we definitely know. This happened at 3829 Southwest 37th Street, Gainesville, Florida. Reported time 11:51 hours, so that's in the evening time, almost about to change to the next day. But basically, there was a report of a disturbance between two neighbors, and the two neighbors, we have the victim who we can't identify per Marcy's law, and also Mr. Garner. And basically, the information that was received is that earlier in the evening, Mr. Garner had an interaction with the victim where there was some fireworks and a parking complaint involved, and the officers showed up and responded to that call. And the video that you may have reviewed was only about a minute and a half of that interaction. And the officers were trying to engage Mr. Garner and get information, and that interaction didn't seem to be very productive. Later, we are called back to this residence involving the victim and Mr. Garner. And the information that was received from the victim watching the video. Now, there is a 12-minute video from Officer Millman, and then there's an hour and 50-minute video from Mr. Millman, who is the lead investigating officer in this case. Mr. Millman, through his investigation and through the reveal of it, the victim basically said that Mr. Garner had come over to his house and was knocking on his front door with a wooden stick of some sort, which the investigation determined to be an axe handle or something, a very hard piece of wood. And it awoke the victim, and the victim came to the door. The victim advised that he was hit in the head. His dog engaged into an attack with Mr. Garner, and so did he. So Mr. Garner and the victim ended up struggling out in the yard, and a little fight ensued there. A neighbor came out and broke up the fight, and then the victim observed Mr. Garner holding a firearm. Apparently, Mr. Garner came to the house with a firearm in his waistband and with a wooden stick. The investigation, went through all the courses of talking to the neighbors, looking at the scene, looking at the evidence, which involved dent marks on the front door of the victim's home from the wooden stick that was. Realizing this is 12 o'clock at night, and Mr. Garner went to the victim's home to talk about this threatening interaction that had happened before, and the officers found probable cause to take Mr. Garner into custody. I could go more into the video and more into the details. I know we've done this last time. There was a long delay between when the officers responded to the call and then when they were able to make contact with the victim. And then Mr. Garner ended up driving through the scene of officers and trying to leave. You may have seen the officers having to stop his car, and they put him in handcuffs. We had EMS on scene, and they navigated through the case to come up with charges for Mr. Garner. Mr. Garner, since our last meeting, has come and met with Chief Jones and I to talk more about the case. But there was probable cause. An arrest ensued, and then it went to the state attorney's office, and you understand that the state attorney's office did not proceed with charges. But our IA investigation was very clear, and it revealed that there was no misconduct by the officers in this case. And then when we came back to you, the hope was you guys would have the opportunity to review the video, ask us questions, and then allow Mr. Garner to come back up in case you had questions for him, or allow him the opportunity to speak. So I
Great.
will
Thank
end there.
you.
That was as close as I could get.
That was great, thank you, and this was my first opportunity to look at the videos, so it was interesting. Did you get a chance to look at any of the videos? I just wasn't sure. And I'm happy to turn the meeting over to you, Chair Johnson. Happy to, so here it is. It's all you.
It took over 2 hours for me to download.
Yeah,
I don't know
they're
about
big
how-
files.
Paul said that we have our computers tool, but yeah.
It was hard.
Took me all that hour.
So the one comment that I will make is this is one case.
Yeah.
And you think about victim redaction and information when we brought up body-worn cameras, how many hours of video does one person have to watch to redact all that victim information? Just giving you a taste of what it is like, and I know we had many questions on that, so I just bring that up while I have.
Why do the links expire? Is that through AXA?
So it's actually through they usually set a time limit for how long that they're good, and you're welcome to download them to your computer and copy them and do whatever you will. I don't know, I apologize, Ms. Sheila, I'm not as techie as I look, but what I will tell you is that it's just a time set, so we can extend it, and we had to several times. Ms. Holt, thank you for that, along with Mr. Green, so how can I?
Do we have any questions? I don't know if anybody had any questions for GPD at this point. I think we all got to see the video and all that, so I don't think there's anything else to really say for GPD. I don't know if Mr. Gardner would like to make a few comments.
My only comment would be that I spoke about the difficulty of watching body-worn cameras the last time I was here. You have to really watch these things with a desire to get to the truth. And I have yet to find anybody that wants to see the things that are wrong. I just keep, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but when somebody comes in and says there's nothing wrong, there's no fault, there's nothing going on, she's wrong. There are several incidences of the body-worn cameras, which you guys are particularly interested in, of officers shutting them off in critical times and turning them back on later. There are incidents of the officers having conversations about what went on, and that the person that's supposed to be the victim in this, the alleged victim, is lying. And they know he's lying. They know it. And yet they don't do anything to take that into account. The fact that I knocked on the door, that's no big mystery. I told them that. Everything that I said happened, the alleged victim also says happened on tape. But you have to watch it. You have to see it. Me coming up here and telling you, her coming up here and telling you, they have their agenda, I have my agenda. I'm innocent. I did not do anything like that. I'm not an aggressive person. I just can't tell you how opposite that is to who I am. So I'm begging you, because that is what you're here for, is to watch the body-worn cameras. And if they're sending it over to you and it takes 3 hours for you to download it, I'll be happy to give you a thumb drive that you will get immediate access to. They can do that. They don't need to make you work for it. And you can watch all of it. There's a lot of it that goes on that's just nothing to watch. Officer Rosano sits off in the woods for, probably 40 minutes, not saying anything. You don't need to watch that intensely. But the ones that you do need to watch are the wrongdoings. And you'll see it. It's there. But if there's nobody to watch it, if there's nobody that's going to look at it, then this is a ridiculous, it's a paper tiger. We're not going to get the changes we need in this city if we don't start really looking for what's wrong. You can't know where you're going if you don't know where you are. Ma'am.
I'm really trying to.
Can I ask Mr. Gardner a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I did watch it. It was dark, so I may have missed what was going on. I'm just saying that several people said they were able to watch the hours of it. So, you met with Chief Jones and stuff. You weren't charged, so...
That's why I'm confused.
I'm sorry, what now?
I heard the charges, I'm sorry, I should have said the charges were dropped.
Yeah.
The charges were dropped, yes they were.
Yeah,
So I'm confused as to
I
what
get
we're looking
grievances.
for.
The charges should have been dropped. It took 6 months to get those charges dropped. And I
I'm
can't tell you
with
what I
ya,
went through in
believe
those
me.
6 months. It was devastating.
Yeah,
If I could tell you everything that it's cost me and you've seen, you would know. But that's not neither here nor there.
I did watch it, sir. I just couldn't see.
If you can't see it, then you just can't see it. That's all. But I can tell you that I could show you, and you would go like, "Oh, is it a policy for them to be able to shut off their body-worn cameras whenever they feel like it?
See, I don't know about it.
Is it a policy? What's the policy?
No.
For body-worn cameras.
So the policy is, if you end up finishing a call, or you end up seeing something that is, you're done with your portion of the call and you're finished, you're allowed to shut your body-worn camera off. You're also allowed to shut it off if someone's receiving medical treatment, like if EMS is seeing somebody or something like that, or even if you were discussing something maybe tactile in nature, you can shut them off. There's not a...
Was that the case in this instance?
I don't know the reasons for everyone shutting off their camera. We didn't interview everybody about why they shut their cameras off, because the evidence from the rest of the cameras of the officers that were mainly involved in the investigation covered the incident and the things that we needed to see. So we didn't see any blatant misuse, and there has been an occasion. And sometimes, not all of us, but if you're on a scene that's hours and hours and hours long, I will tell you the batteries on those cameras don't go for 24 hours or 12 hours. Sometimes they have to be charged, and sometimes that's a reason for the cameras to shut off. So I don't know in this particular venue why why those cameras were shut off, but there could be some very good reason. But the officer, Millman, who is the investigating officer, there's 12 minutes, stops for a bit, and then you see 2 hours of video, and him and Officer Rosano. Rosano was there, and we have a sergeant that's there, and some others also. So there's definitely some cameras out there. Yes,
I
ma'am?
have a question. So, to Mr. Garner, the charges were dropped. It took like 6 months. Are you satisfied with the outcome? What do you want? You just want this board to hear how you feel about it, but the charges have been dropped, haven't they?
The
So what
cases-
other remedy are you asking for?
The remedy I want is that we become knowledgeable as a police advisory committee on what's being done in the streets, how they're handling themselves on scene, how they interact, what they do not do, what they share with you in their written reports. Is that the same thing that you see on the body-worn camera? If you do not see what is written in the reports, then the police have a cover-up issue.
We have another
Okay?
member that has a
They're
question.
going to circle the wagons. I don't blame them for that. You know, they're going through hell right now. They don't have the people to do their job. They're having a city that's exploding. I understand all that. But my initial reaction to this committee was that you were looking for irregularities, that you were looking for things that people aren't being treated fairly about. It's not about me God was on my side. That's
Yes.
what got me out of this. That's what got me out of this. It was no human intervention, I'll tell you that.
We have one more member that has a question for you as well.
Sir?
We have another member that has a question for you.
Oh, okay, well, go ahead.
Duncan?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I watched the body worn camera footage and I read the internal affairs report. That took a while. I didn't see when I was looking what I thought was with a critical eye, and I didn't see any things that jumped out at me as being irregularities or misconduct or violations of procedure, but I'm not an expert on procedure and policy for officers in the field, and I don't think anyone on the council is. I could be wrong about that, maybe some of you are. I'm trying to get better at being an expert on those things, but I'm not. And so it struck me as I was watching the camera footage, which was dark and difficult to make out at various points, that it kind of felt like we were doing this inquiry, or whatever you want to call it, in kind of a backwards way. I mean, it seemed like it would be more sensible for Mr. Gardner to present the case making use of the body-worn camera footage and the internal affairs report and identify the apparent discrepancies. I felt like we were being asked to sort of come up with discrepancies without any guidance from him. And so it just struck me that we're kind of going about this in a backwards way. I don't know if any of the other council members felt the same way when they were watching the body-worn camera footage or not.
That's why I was so confused. I was here because I was thinking that when we went over the footage, I was looking for, as in, like when I went through and read the report and I seen that the charge got dropped, I was like, well, what was the point of going through the footage? But now I see what you're saying, as in looking for, like officers, they turn off cameras early, or looking for like how the officers were acting. I didn't know that's what we were looking for.
I thought that's
exactly.
what this,
Yeah, I was looking for like.
I thought that was what the body was all about. I never asked anybody to try the case.
No,
no.
no, but
I didn't want the case tried.
No, we know that.
But I'll ask this question on your internal audit. Was that an appropriate internal audit? Do you know anything about internal audits? If you don't, you can read the guidelines on them. All of this stuff is available online. Anything you want to get, policy and procedure, it's available. You can get it. You can do a freedom of information request. They have to give it to you if you just simply ask for it. They got to bring it to you and put it in your hand. That's their job right now for you guys. I'm just telling you that there are irregularities out there that are going on. I am innocent, and they really dropped the ball. Here's some statistics for you. 95% of the people that get arrested don't go to trial. They go to plea bargains. That's how the system is set up. So that leaves 5% that go to trial. Of that 5% that go to trial, 1 in 5 go to jail that were innocent. Now, how do they get that statistic? Because somebody comes up with a body-worn camera, somebody comes up with a video, somebody comes up with DNA, somebody recants their story. But the fact of the matter is, 1 in 5 goes to prison and he's innocent. He or she, I don't want to be suspicious. But that's the whole reason that I thought you guys were here.
Well, we don't want to wag and wheel too much on it, and we actually have another case that we have to look at that we know for a fact has some irregularities in it. Yes, ma'am.
Chair Johnson, let me just ask, Mr. Garner, could you, in the complaint that you sent into Internal Affairs, did any of the officers treat you poorly, or were disrespectful, or any of the?
Well, I would say the arrest out of my car was pretty rough compared to the, welcome John, the guy that they know also committed another assault within that hour. Within that same hour, he committed another assault. That's case 9443. So they treated him with kid gloves. I'm surprised they didn't get him a cup of coffee and a donut. Look at the difference between how I was treated. This is before any investigation went on. This is before they talked to anybody. You look at how he was treated and how I was treated. Because I can tell you that Officer Millman came with an agenda. He came with an agenda because he was upset at the first time that he came and he didn't do anything, which is called nonfeasance, by the way. He should have taken a report on my complaint at the fireworks, just like the other officer took the report on the other assault that my alleged victim did in that same hour. He got a report written on it. Mr. Millman didn't take a report on mine. He minimized everything. And Officer Rosano even saw the fireworks that he set off, and he says, "Oh, I set off one firework." It was commercial-grade fireworks in a huge box, simply meant to get my attention. It was harassment. It was a continuing harassment. He started off harassing me by blocking my driveway. This is not about a parking space. There's no such thing as a parking space. It's the street. It's not a parking space. So there's a lot of things that are in there that are just wrong. So the internal audit was not an internal audit. It didn't address anything. They told you flat out, no, there's no body-worn cameras issue. I'll show you 4 on camera, and I know there was a 5th. It's obvious. So this isn't a fair shakedown. It isn't. And I understand what y'all are going through. I understand it. It's huge. They gave y'all more than you can possibly deal with, and there's a reason for that. It's to keep you from doing what you need to do. They're not going to get you the information you need, and you're going to be spinning your wheels, and then when you do give recommendations, they're all going to go, "Thank you very much, let's go back to normal procedure." That's my feeling. And I respect these guys. I respect the fact that they go out there every day and try to do their job. But when you're wrong, you're wrong.
Thank you,
That's all
sir.
I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Garner.
Thank you.
Just speaking on the body-worn camera, we can always provide you guys thumb drives. We can put it in a OneDrive if it's easier, like a shared drive that wouldn't be a link. It would be, you know what I'm saying, it would be easier. So we can navigate through that. This was our first time, and we send those links out to the community all the time. I don't know if we've sent them out to so many people at one time off of one link, and that might have been the issue, so.
Oh, that's all right. I just left it.
We all learned, I think we all were like, how's this gonna work? And then I didn't know what I was doing either,
It
so.
was all right.
Yes.
I got it, you know.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and if there's more information we can provide. So this next case is a pretty significant case. It's one, and is it, Chair, may I proceed? I'm so sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the next one is about a pursuit review that was done for an instance on November 30th of 2020. We received the AIR which is the administrative review form that we have internally when there's a situation like this, from Lieutenant Bradford on January 23rd, 2021. I will be very brief because there's a lot of information, and I'll make it the Reader's Digest version, and then you guys, if you have more questions, you got me, okay? So initially, we pick up on a stolen vehicle about 1300 West University Avenue, turns on 12th Street northbound, and then onto 3rd Avenue and goes back out to 13th Street. And the officers engage, and you're going to see Officer Kuplakatu, Officer Zayas, and Officer Burwell involved in the first pursuit. So we have 2 pursuits that involves this AIR. There is a total of 6 people who are involved in these 2 instances. So you're going to hear some things, and then I'll kind of go through, and I made a little bit of a narration to it to make it a little easier for you also. But basically what ends up happening is that those 3 officers get behind the stolen vehicle, they try to pull the stolen vehicle over, and the stolen vehicle ends up speeding away from them north on 13th Street, cuts through, keeps going, gets to 16th Avenue, and then at 16th Avenue Northwest and Northwest 13th Street, that vehicle heads west at a high rate of speed. The officers continue to chase that vehicle on 16th Avenue, but the vehicle keeps gaining. One of the officers, which is Officer Zayas, pulls over to the side because the car's just gaining. A car passes her, a patrol car passes her. She gets in behind that car. And we have another officer who's waiting at 34th Street and Northwest 16th Avenue. And the suspect vehicle goes by so fast, she and her trainee, because she has a training officer in the car with her, basically says that car's traveling too fast, there's no way we're going to catch it, and they let the vehicle go. So the first thing on the first pursuit, the 3 officers, Burwell, Zayas, and Kupalakatu, this is a violation of our policy. Our policy says that you can only actually chase vehicles for violent felonies, and there's 8 of them, and it's firearms involved, homicide, sexual battery, kidnapping, very egregious crimes. We are not allowed to chase vehicles in a pursuit level through the city for a property crime. So those 3 officers are held accountable for the first pursuit, and the first part of the internal affairs investigation goes through that. Several minutes later, Officer Ortiz is over by the Oaks Mall, and Officer Ortiz picks up on that same stolen vehicle. And he begins to take that vehicle and follow the vehicle. So I'm going to give you a track, and we'll just start, and I can fill in where some of the officers come in and come out, but let's just start with that. Officer Ortiz gets into the vehicle, and it's on Southwest 62nd Boulevard over by the mall. The vehicle travels to Southwest 20th Avenue. It is, once it hits 20th Avenue, it's heading towards Ventura and our city park. And on 20th Avenue, Officer Ortiz stays with the vehicle pretty much close to it or not too far away for a majority of this. So Ortiz is the #1 officer to kind of, in our pursuit policy, kind of who the officer is. So realize, let's just start to say this, the first thing. The first pursuit, when they broke it off, and even before that, would not be an authorized pursuit. Once a vehicle makes a subsequent traffic stop and ends up gaining speed and fleeing away from you, it becomes a pursuit, and you're supposed to disengage. The same vehicle that is stolen with no other crimes, other stolen vehicle, and now we have fleeing and attempting to elude because they were evading the police officers. Neither of those is reason for Officer Ortiz to get onto the vehicle and take that vehicle and travel with the vehicle and try to stop it, because the car, as you will tell, is continuing to gain and get away from the officers as they travel through the city. So as they're going down 20th Avenue, getting close to 34th Street, and I apologize, we have many vehicles involved. There is Officer Kuplakatu again and Officer Zayas, who were involved in the first pursuit. They end up with the car on 34th. They may have started on 20th. But they're ending up trying to catch up to the vehicle and Officer Ortiz because of the high rate of speed that they're traveling. They are going through the city at this point. Officer Shutterly, who is the officer who had the trainee, who did not pursue in the first pursuit, ends up getting behind a couple of the other officers, I think it was Coop and Zayas, and ends up disengaging again, because she says, no, this is too fast, we can't catch this car, this isn't the right thing to do. The officers continue to travel, and it is while the suspect vehicle he's actually on 34th Street, where the lieutenant of the shift kind of becomes aware that something is going on. And our policy says that the shift supervisors will ask for speeds, traffic, all of the things, and kind of monitor the pursuits. And they can terminate a pursuit at any time that it doesn't fit policy, or it isn't safe, or they can authorize a pursuit. So they have the ability to do that. But anytime officers are kind of engaging in this activity, they're supposed to take responsibility for it and give clear direction. Officer Ortiz ends up going north on 34th Street all the way to 39th Avenue. The lieutenant who is Lieutenant Bradford. He is also engages and tries to help Officer Ortiz, and continues into the pursuit and is telling him he's, behind him. He is, basically assisting Officer Ortiz. When the car gets to 39th Avenue, it heads eastbound. It goes all the way to Northeast 15th Street. With Officer Ortiz, Kupalakatu, Zayas aren't close. I don't think they got very close to catch up. They could see, but they're traveling in that direction. And also with Lieutenant Bradford, who's now engaged in the pursuit. One thing I want to mention is Officer Ortiz did not use his emergency equipment. So there's no lights, there's no sirens being utilized. High rates of speed, excessive speeds. Ends up going to 15th Street, south on 15th Street. I mean, I can continue to go and go and go, but what the investigation revealed were multiple failures. And several of the failures of Officer Ortiz is that when you don't activate your lights on your patrol car, your in-car camera does not come on unless you travel above 80 miles an hour. He was traveling above 80 miles an hour, but the issue with that is the car, for some reason, was not triggering the camera. So the in-car camera does not get activated but 2 times, and both times were because he was traveling so fast and hit a concussion with the pavement, one entering a parking lot and one at another, that the vehicle thought he crashed and his camera came on. And at which point he disengaged the camera in both incidences. So we don't have very much in-car camera from that part of the incident. There is in-car camera from other vehicles and other individuals. We reviewed all of that. We reviewed the radio traffic. There were several officers that came down to try to engage and assist, and within a very half a block were turned around and going the opposite direction because it's not within policy. It should not have been authorized, and they knew not that per our policy are not supposed to get involved in stuff like this. We end up continuing to follow the vehicle. Duck Pond ends up at the end of it all, and nobody was injured. We saw some near misses on some intersections by the officers who were traveling through intersections that they didn't clear them properly. They almost hit a citizen car, but they didn't. So a lot of situations within this pursuit that definitely did not fit within the guidelines of the Gainesville Police Department pursuit policy. So Lieutenant Bradford was the shift commander. He, showed up on the scene. At the end of this, he ended up talking with the officers. But this was not brought to our attention in the Internal Affairs Unit until almost a month later, which would have been at the end of December. And then we received the AIR a month past that. Per our policy, pursuit reviews are supposed to be done within 14 days. And that would include an AIR being completed before the 14 days is up and sent through the Internal Affairs Division. The reason that we will bring this up is that the Internal Affairs Division, per Florida State statutes and 112, which is the Officer Bill of Rights, we have 180 days to do a thorough investigation. Once we find out about it, that's our time limit, and it does put a cramp on us, especially when we have 10 people that we have to, who could potentially be involved officers for any type of internal affairs kind of conversation. So the investigation was complete. All the officers were interviewed. You probably read the girth of that report. And we embodied a panel, which is part of our IA policy. So let me talk a little bit about it. Lieutenant Weiland may have talked about it before. But what the panel does is once the IA investigator has completed the investigation, we get together 2 captains within our agency, the assistant chief. So normally it's a captain in the bureau where the incident occurred, so it would be the patrol bureau, another captain, and then assistant chief who's over that bureau, myself, an HR director from the city of Gainesville who involves the E3 rules and policy violations. And we sit in a room and we review the entire internal affairs investigation, and we determine what the rule violations are, what the discipline is, and what the past discipline has been for an instance that would be something of this nature. And that is how we come up with the discipline. So I don't say this, so the most alarming part, and I'm sure you guys read it, and I can talk about the elephant in the room. We have an officer, Officer Ortiz, he traveled 17.2 miles during this, and varying speeds. Okay, lots of different speeds. And the reason that we know that is we have automated vehicle locators, AVLs, which basically shows GPS of where the officer goes. It also tracks speed. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't
No,
make
that's
sure.
okay. We've actually got a few of those too that work, and yeah.
So that's how we were to kind of track speeds. The max speed that he traveled was 119 miles an hour. You guys know he turned off the camera. It's in the report. I mean, I could say that we're not talking about stuff. The lieutenant who was involved traveled 4.5 miles. He went 110 miles an hour at the highest speed. So there might have been an 80, there might have been a, right? But this is how fast. So the other officers, Officer Zayas and Kupalakatu, Officer Burwell wasn't involved in this one. He was involved in the other. So, I mean, we're talking about very high rates of speed at certain times. Some people are not using emergency equipment, so on and so forth. So the recommended discipline for Officer Ortiz, who is the primary vehicle, we're talking the second pursuit, okay? So let's make sure I categorize that. The violation of Rule 25 and Rule 30. So the one thing that I did for you guys is in your packet, I've got the code of conduct, and it's the disciplinary procedures and kind of recommended discipline for violations that we see of our policy. And if you go to page 8, it starts out there with our rule violations. But it has the rule violation in the packet. It also has the recommended discipline. And this is how I can kind of go back and forth, and we can talk about the discipline that was dealt out in this one. So there was an E3 Rule 25 and Rule 30 violation by Officer Ortiz. Now, Rule 25, when you look at it, it's willful wanton violation of statutory authority. I'm sorry, that's a word that's hard to roll off my tongue. And E330 is safety. And the recommended discipline in that particular thing is an employee notice, which is a suspension, written cautioning, of course, and 40-hour suspension off of work. For Lieutenant Bradford, he received an E3 Rule 24, which is willful and wanton performance neglect of assigned duties, and an E3 30 for safety. So the pursuit, we actually categorize as you'll say it as the E3 30. You'll see it on everybody's discipline record, okay? So the 30 is the safety. So anyone that participated in the pursuit gets the 30. When we talk about 24 and 25, those are very egregious in terms of, when we talk about discipline, it is a very big discipline. 40-hour suspension from work. But the difference between the two main people, which would be Officer Ortiz and Lieutenant Bradford, and then the discipline that were received by the 3 others, you'll notice that Officer Zayas, Officer Kupalakatu, and Officer Burwell received an employee notice, and that was because of, for both Rule 13 and Rule 30, and that's discipline. An employee notice is considered discipline. It's in your permanent file. But that's the recommendation for like a first violation of an offense. Now, there are multiple factors, and I'll get you free. There are multiple factors that go into how we get the discipline to there. But Mr. Chair, go ahead and I'll maybe,
No, you're fine.
no, go ahead.
Officer Burwell.
Burwell.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
We heard this story with him before.
Burwell was a traffic stop that I presented to you guys, which didn't have any discipline on the first. We did talk about him.
He had a high-speed chase down 16th Avenue and 9th Street.
He had he also previously,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Why was he treated as a first-time offender?
So, excellent question. He received a written warning, okay, which is not considered disciplinary action. It's corrective action. He's a young officer, he's new, and if you read for the interview of this part, speeds did not reach above 80s. I mean, it was a very low speed chase for a very short distance of time. Officer Burwell only got hit with one violation. So if you look at him, like in the end of the report, he had the least amount of involvement in considering both. He just got the Rule 13. So
if I'm correct, he reached 81, I think it was 81 miles an hour?
it is, and we weighed that with the other, but the part of it also is the first pursuit was never called off by a supervisor.
Okay.
It was allowed to pursue, and then they all backed off when they hit 34th Street, and they didn't continue to chase that car. So because he got a written warning, which is corrective action, he's a newer officer of ours. We take that into account. We take into account supervisor direction. We also take into account speeds and distance traveled, and it did not reach the same level as the others. So because of that, he got first violation, he gets an employee notice. The same thing with Officer Kupalakatu and Officer Zayas. They are newer officers to our ranks. They were acting and following behind a lieutenant who was actively participating in a pursuit that was not authorized, and he was giving the indications on the radio that this was okay behavior. And when during the interviews the officers were telling us, well, if the lieutenant says it's okay and he's doing, it was very easy for us to understand being a young officer and realizing that that's 3 ranks from you. It's not a corporal, a sergeant, but it's your lieutenant who runs your shift. And we took that situation into account for Officer Zayas and Officer Kupalakatu, and that was the reason for the employee notices for them. But everybody got disciplined, it's just not everybody got a suspension. Yes?
And just real briefly, I read through this, and the more I read through this, the more disturbed I got about these things that should have been corrected from the beginning. The lights not being activated, the high rates of speeds, and then these things of, I don't know how fast I was going. All these things I read, and it really disturbed me because there was a potential for disaster.
Yes.
Because of these factors, and because of the fact of that, well, I don't want to sound cliche, but those who should have known better didn't act on this to prevent this. All could have been avoided. And so I said, lights not being activated, not knowing how fast you're going, and these things, and the more I read, I became very disturbed, and then I began to become afraid as to what could have happened because of these blatant violations, not from a rookie wet behind the ears recruit, but from a seasoned ranking officer. And so when I got to the end, after going through this and shaking my head at what I was reading, I concur wholeheartedly with the conclusions of this internal investigation, because it simply put, a lot of the stuff that's in here should not have happened, period. And I'm glad that nobody was, innocent person were hurt or killed because of these violations. So I concur with what happened in terms of the disciplinary action, because this was just really not good, these factors.
Yes, sir.
My question kind of goes along with, not the first three officers, but the last two, Mr. Lionel Ortiz and Stephen Bradford.
Yeah.
The lieutenant and the officer, like, that went on the real bad chase. Like, throughout that whole chase, we seen throughout where he was, like, intentionally turning off the camera, they didn't turn the lights on. That's not an accident. That's not like oh, we forgot or we didn't know. So it's like, this is like willful, like, purposeful breaking of the rules. So I'm just trying to figure out why were they dismissed? Because I just feel like if you take into account everything that happened and then the intentional breaking of the rules, this is not like I filled out the report wrong, such, or I did this wrong. This is like, I intentionally broke the rules and I knew I was breaking the rules and I'm gonna cover it up. Turn the cameras off, I won't cut the lights on, I won't, like, it was intentional.
So the officer Ortiz actually went to his lieutenant and said, I think I messed up. So I want to take that into account also. If we mess up and we come forward and are truthful about what happened in the car, and we're acknowledging that we did this, there is no excuse for this behavior, and there never is. And the decision as to whether we retain or dismiss an employee goes all the way up to the chief's level. So the panel actually brings the recommendations to the chief, and we sit down and we discuss. And there are a lot of factors that involve this case in particular. That willful, wanton, sustained charge is, if you look at the next step on the employee notice on the E3, under that chart.
Yeah, on the first one that says you can dismiss them. That's why I was wondering why.
It's a dismissal thing. So we take into account all the different factors. We even read and I apologize, the interviews. We have the internal affairs commander come in and speak to the panel. And this was the decision that was come to by all the captains and all of the people within the agency that make those decisions. So I feel what you're saying, but at the same time, we also, the lieutenant who waited a bit to come to internal affairs, that is a chronic problem for him, as illustrated in the end of the IA report, just late turning in of stuff. There is no intention.
But I understand where you're coming from. I understand where you're coming from. This is how I look at these.
Sure, no, it's okay.
And I like to take it back, because I used to work at a hospital. I've seen, like, the medical field, how stuff works. When there's a such thing as when you go in and you unintentionally do something wrong.
Absolutely.
You get held accountable, stuff happens, but we understand things happen. But there's a whole other thing when it's found that you intentionally did something wrong. There is no second chance. There is no, I can take accountability for it, make up for it, I can come back. It's like, you're done. So we got that same standard for medical professionals and firefighters and everybody else.
Absolutely.
Well, why is it not the same for police?
We take every circumstance into account. We take every instance. We take every interview into account. The information that we were provided. The officer is a person, and it is a lot of training. He is a very tenured officer with our department who has a long history of doing the right things and for the right reasons. There is a lot of, and recognizing that in order for, there is a person behind that. There's a person behind it, and we take everything into account, Keon. And I understand we cut it off at the legs and go, and I understand that feeling. And there are many reasons that we've dismissed other people for other things, and this is egregious, but it's we take it all into account, okay? And I understand exactly what you're thinking and you're feeling, and we've dismissed several people this year for things that were inexcusable. Cheating, okay? You can't cheat, you can't lie, and all the officers know that. You come into the IA interview, you better tell the truth. If you lie in an IA interview and we have body-worn camera to change it, you will not work for the Gainesville Police Department, because the courts can't trust you. There is a long history part of that, but there are things that we have to take into account. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask the rest of the members if there are any more questions. We're running out of recording time.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I hope you're using this as a training opportunity for the future, because wow, what a
And I just
story.
want to introduce something that so we can talk about next meeting. I was looking at something that happened in California. They did this whole thing where they took a year of police calls, and essentially like they took the calls and they went back after all the police calls and seen if a police officer was actually necessary. So to see like, okay, well, did you need a police officer, or did you need a social worker, or did you need this, a mental health service provider, or did you need that? Like, to see what all their community needed, and what they found out was that literally 67% of their calls did not need an officer, like period, present. So they went about it and changed their program for when they release officers to hire, you know, social workers and everything like that to look at that. So I feel like that's something we should discuss so we can look at to see if that's something we can implement in Gainesville, to see like if that's something to look at, because that seems like the progression of what policing needs to turn into.
Keon, you just described Chief Jones's program called differential policing, where we actually divert calls to make appointments and have civilians answer them. We also went from 1 co-responder team to 4 co-responder teams that have been subsidized, and those are an officer arrives with a mental health professional to the Baker Acts, to all of the things, and we have a long storied history of diverting mentally health situations away from the jail into mental health treatment. And maybe at one of the meetings you'd allow us the opportunity, Chair, to present that program. But we are already looking at that, and the chief actually came up with a program, and
Yeah, differential policing. I met with the sheriff. We tried to work some things out because we do not have our own communication center. When you dial 911, it's a combined communication center operated by the sheriff. So the sheriff would have to agree to that.
But you know, I'm in connection with him. That's something we can definitely
Yeah, that's something, yeah.
work out.
I think we
Great
can
idea.
talk about that.
We'll table it for next week.
But no, good talk.
Hey, I want to ask something real quick. So, it never even occurred to me that he actually didn't turn on those lights so the camera wouldn't come on. Like, my mind doesn't work like that. So the transfer, was that part of his, he doesn't supervise people?
Okay, so I apologize. Officer Ortiz didn't turn on his lights and sirens.
Right.
I believe that Lieutenant Bradford.
No, I got that. I read it.
Okay, all right.
No, I read it, but do
Yeah.
you think he didn't turn it on so that the camera wouldn't come on?
So I think he didn't turn it, I'm deducing he didn't turn it on because if you turn it on, then it's a pursuit. And there is kind of like a mythical thing, like, well, if I don't turn my lights and sirens on, then it's not a pursuit, and then, right? But as soon as it got over, it's beyond what we have experienced. Our training unit, I don't know if you saw, you probably didn't see part of that. Every single person involved in this internal affairs, the ones that were disciplined, are referred to training. They will be going through pursuit training. We do pursuit training presenting pursuit training in our Cycle 4 in-service, lots of training opportunities, because this is now closed.
What went wrong?
And this is closed, so it's able to be released, and that information is out there. So
Lieutenant Bradford's not that important.
So Lieutenant Bradford had a performance measurement plan before on some deficiencies. Along with this instance, the decision was to remove him to the logistics division. He was responsible for both pursuits. Both pursuits happened. He's responsible for the shift and the people involved, and as a supervisor, we're holding him extremely accountable for that responsibility and taking that all into account, and that was just part of the discipline that was received. So he received an employee notice, written cautioning, he got 24-hour suspension, and he was transferred to another division, because he was already, that's it.
We're out of time.
Yep.
That's it, we're gonna adjourn right there.
Okay.
Since everyone else is.
Okay.